Welcome back to the show. I don't want to call this the show because there's lots of things called the show, and this is not one of them. Is it a vodcast? Like a video podcast? Vidcast? Maybe it's a vidcast? I'm not really casting it though. I mean, I'm kind of casting it. I'm just sort of casting it onto a hard drive and then letting it sit. Did you hear? Did the brake noise come through? Yeah, the brakes. They do that. They do that up here, and every time they start doing that, we go in and we're like, "Hey, mechanic people, do my brakes need replaced?" And they go, "Nah, you're good." Okay. If you say so. It's just the water. So I'm thinking we're using like dry weather brake pads, and they need to be wet weather or something, or maybe you just need to clean the thing off a little bit. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. A gearhead, as they call us, them, as we call them, as they are called by someone. You do need to get over, but there are lots of people who need to get over, so you're not alone amongst them. Thank you, person. Always wave at the people behind you. Do I have a... Yeah, I think I'm trying a slightly different alignment with the camera. I might be able to... Looks like I just barely can, so if I can, I might actually be able to tilt the camera such that I can get passengers in the shot, which would be kind of cool, and then I can invite people onto my podcast and we can talk about whatever random stuff, needs to be talked about by us. I don't know. I tend to end up saying ridiculous stuff to my roommate a lot when we go on drives, so we can do that, and that would be funny. Need to work on my voice. Not growling all the time. Using that weird, choppy, quiet voice. So I'm not gonna use it. But the main way I have of not using it is to talk really loud or to sing. So if I sing, there it is. Sing. There it goes. Okie dokie. Well, that's how we do it low. Can I do it in the mid-range? Can I do it in my native range? I think this is a good natural range for me. You kind of... So, it feels like it's bouncing off the back of my throat. Like... It's like I can feel the waves forming. Because so sound is waves, and it's compressions and decompressions at specific rates and in specific spaces, but it kind of behaves like waves of a certain size and wiggles of a certain size or whatnot. And when I get the voice just right, I feel like it's like I can feel it, setting up its standing wave. If you have a wave in an enclosed space, it will form standing waves eventually. It will eventually settle into some sort of pattern based on the relative lengths of the space and the wavelength of whatever wave you have in there. This is how brass instruments work. And actually, I think most air-based instruments function by inputting waves and letting them form resonant standing waves. It also does a weird thing. Your microwave has standing waves. somebody, I don't remember who it was, actually found a way to test them and show them, which is kind of cool that you could do that. It did not involve digital cameras. It was like putting specific foodstuffs in there that react very strongly to the thing. So the trick in microwave design, I guess, would be to create the box such that the standing wave does not peak in the center, right? Because then all of its troughs will locate equidistant around the center. So you make it peak not at the center of the box, and then you rotate, and then you put a turntable in there, and that way all parts of the food end up in a peak spot at some point or another. There was a hand gesture there, but not only is it dark right now, said gesture was actually below the level of the camera, so if you had seen anything, it would have just been... So, if you'd seen anything, it would have just been my hand going around in a circle. You still can't see my head, so the extra motion that I'm doing right now is not really helping. You can't actually see anything. I was sort of hoping that in the dim light, if I move my head a lot, then it might form some sort of expression so that you could see the expressions on my face, without having a face to see expressions on. Maybe. The roads are pretty light tonight. I don't have anything to talk about. Probably important. Nothing to note. Stuff happened at work today. It was all things. Today I learned that when you change your server configuration, it makes a giant mess. I mean, I guess I already knew that, right? The server configuration in this forest that I'm talking about, on this domain, there was originally a server that had too many roles, and one thing led to another, and it broke, so we had to recreate it. Among the things that it did were primary domain controller and file server. So we took it down and split those roles out and built a domain controller and built a file server with different names from what it originally was. And then it created a huge mess, and we went through and we cleaned up all of the file shares and all of the mappings and everything so that everything pointed to the correct server. But we miss one sort of obscure thing that isn't really an issue because, the software works and it's fine. I think that part of our system had it using group policy to stay up to date, but it was doing that with installers that lived on the old file server. So while the files got moved over to the new file server, the share that led to those installers did not, and all the procedures and policy objects associated with this installer did not. So I had to go through and sort those out today, and that created a giant mess. And the lesson there is that it's going to create a giant mess, and you can't hope to get it all ahead of time. Oh, that's a terrible lesson. Let's not learn that lesson. Let's learn a different lesson. I mean, maybe the lesson is to just not overload your servers with too many roles, because if you do that, it's bound to break. It's almost guaranteed, and then when it does, it ruins everything. Instead of, if your file server breaks and you have to build a new one while your domain controller is still up, and you can go back to snapshots. You can't really do that on a domain controller. It freaks out because the date and time settings change, and it's really central to the authentication system. And if the time and date are off, then authentication doesn't work really at all. So going back to snapshot on a domain controller is like not a real thing, so you shouldn't do it. You pretty much just have to leave those and do image backups, and when it goes, it's gonna go, and then you take your time, you bring it back up, and okay. But snapshot's just gonna break, so it's not really worth trying. Part of it is that it's gonna create a giant mess, because you'll have a secondary domain controller and it has stuff set up. You'll have and that'll have information. And so when the primary comes back online, if it's using old data, then it messes in your replication, and there's a big giant goof, and you gotta sort everything out, and it's gross. So having lots and lots of different servers can be nice, because then everything, if something breaks, it's only a little bit that breaks, and that's good. The less damage that will be done by something breaking, the better. On the other hand, if you have like 30,000 servers, then it's just a pain to maintain, right? It's a huge mess, and it's kind of a waste of time. So there's a balance. There's also a point where you can't really break roles out anymore, or it doesn't make sense to. So yeah, that's today's topic, I guess, is today we learned the lesson that stuff breaks and you're always going to be cleaning up after it. That's an awful lesson. Today we did not learn that lesson. I don't know what lesson we learned today. If I come up with something, I'll let you know. I don't know. You know what? I'll think about it for a little bit. I'll be back here in just a moment. And maybe we'll have learned a lesson. Or maybe we won't. So it's going to come as a huge shock, but we did not learn any lessons. Live and don't learn. That's us, as Bill Watterson once said. Yeah. Doing it this way. Oh, slowing down. Talking about the things I'm doing even though you can't see what's going on. So I just went through and started a render on an older video, which it makes me happy when I'm getting things done. I'm moving along. It reminded me of an interesting topic that we haven't touched in a while, but I kind of want to be more at a current point before I get too far. So if I'm uploading and we're not current, then I found the video where I repeated the idea, and I don't think I found the video where I introduced the idea, so I might need to look it up and see if I can find said video. But I found the video where I repeated the idea that we might be able to develop a workable theory of ethical systems as structured as layers of priority on top of one another. But I guess I'll have to sit down, find everything I've said about it, write it down, and really work on it. And then we might have something we can go from there to make that work. I've got to really focus on not looking at my face when I'm doing this, because I just glanced at a moment of this video, and if I look at my face, it looks really weird. God. It's a nice Seattle rain out. It's very, very light, drizzly. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be. All things are in their place. Rapidly approaching the time at work when we're going to move offices. We're moving offices, and that should be loads of fun. I think the plan right now is to pick a weekend and see who we can get to come in and haul stuff around. Looking at it, a lot of the stuff we have, huge chunk of what we own is our recycle pile. So we just make a thing with FreeCycle to come and dump everything out. That'd be great. I totally rate it for parts from time to time, which is awesome and has been approved officially. Because anything that we're going to just ship off to be broken down into constituent parts or whatever they can do with them, it's considered fine for me to raid for bits. And I don't like raid them for RAM because that's not very useful. I don't raid them for hard drives, also not super useful. And anyway, the hard drives have mostly been removed because those have to be destroyed in case they have any sensitive data on them, that sort of thing. I raid them for weird stuff like laptop batteries, because I want to get into building charge circuits. That would be a fun thing to build, is charge circuits, right? Do that on camera, and if I can come up with a design, you know, solder it together on camera and see how it works and test out our very first charge circuit. I'd like to have maybe wearable light ups that run on the lithium-ion cells. What I really want to do, I like to tinker, I like to make nifty things, but I don't come up with ideas a lot by myself. One thing I've been working on, or we've been working on, myself and a partner, we have a flow wand, and she will be only too happy to demonstrate it once I can get it back to working again. I really need to just sit down and do that. It's going to be 2 minutes of soldering. And it is a levitation stick that glows, which is awesome. We made a levitation stick that glows. Super cool. Currently, it runs on AA's. AA's? AA's. Air triples? Yeah, it runs on 4 AAA batteries. I would like to mess with the circuit so that we can get it to run on, I think they're 18650s. which are lithium-ion cells that have either a charge thing built into them or have them be able to, you know, remove from the device and then plug into a charger. Which I guess if we can do that wouldn't be too bad at all, because we have such a device. We have a charger for exactly those. Suppose I could use that to run through and check them all and then get rid of any of the ones that are broken. How about we'll stash these? Other plans? I think it'd be awesome if I could rig up a solar powered one that would work. I just wear it around, you know, as I'm walking around, or leave it in the car and it would just charge batteries for me. That'd be great. On the sun shines in Seattle sometimes, once in a while. No, really, it totally does. Promise you it does. You know, in just a couple months here, we'll be driving around and the sun will shine. We'll be driving around in the sun, and it will be the same time. Woo! Because the days are so much longer in the summertime. Anybody who lives north of 40 degrees is not surprised by this information at all, actually. I grew up at like 33 degrees north, and although the days are longer in the summer and they are shorter in the winter, and it is notable, it's not really a huge deal. Like, yeah, the sun goes down quicker in winter, it comes up later and it's colder and stuff, but it's not nearly as extreme as it is up here, where we're at like, what, 42 degrees? Are we? Is the 44th parallel? I think the 44th parallel is the separator. And I think so Canadians know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Canadians, you know what's up. You guys, that's what's up. Especially in the summer. Alright. That was strange and awkward. I'll talk to you next time. Have a great night.